the world of trains back in the 1930s, there was a train that both served and impressed a generation. In New Hampshire, it's a train that's coming back to life.
From day number one, it wowed whoever saw it. Thousands of people lined the tracks just to see it run through town. The Flying Yankee was smoother running and cooler looking than anything that had come before it. It sort of resembled a silver bullet, and it was as fast as one too. It was as elegant as it was functional. And it was made in America at a time when America needed something to believe in. Introduced in 1935 during the Great Depression, the Flying Yankee brought riders back to commuter trains which had fallen on hard times. It was built for the Boston and Maine Railroad, and it ran between Boston and Portland and Bangor. It was one of three similar trains, all built by the E.G. Budd Company of Philadelphia. They were ultra-lightweight stainless steel streamliners. The Flying Yankee was sure something to look at. 3 cars that carried a total of 132 passengers. She was sleek, but she was a workhorse. 750 miles a day, 6 days a week, at speeds above 100 miles per hour, when many folks were used to riding old steam trains. She combined high-tech and hard work. The first to have electric heat as well as air conditioning. The first to serve hot meals. A diesel-electric motor that blew the old steam locomotives away. It was a ride you would never forget.
So it was a pretty enlightening experience to get on these, in those days, by comparison, a bright car, the large windows. The thing that impressed, I think, was the way the train got up to speed, the acceleration rate, and the quietness of it.
Over the years, the nameplate on the front would change as it would transition from a commuter train to an excursion train, but the nameplate on the rear always said Flying Yankee. In 1957, after 22 years of service, the Flying Yankee was retired from service. It was a victim of its small passenger capacity and the growing popularity of the interstate highway system.
The train ran for 23 years, making its last run on May 7th of 1957, and then was given to the Edaville Railroad on Cape Cod, where it sat for 40 years. Robert Morrill, a New Hampshire business person who actually developed Storyland, a very popular attraction, had a vision to retrieve the train and restore it, and he wanted to do that for 2 reasons. One personal, that is, his dad had been a conductor on the train, and the other is that he thought that this train, for its novelty and ingenuity, represented America's best ability to bring ingenuity to bear on problems, which of course was the condition of railroads in the middle of the Depression, when America was at its probably at its lowest ebb in the last 150 years. So that's how he determined to purchase the train and bring it to New Hampshire and commence the restoration. And so we have been about the business now of restoring the train to fulfill our vision of restoring it to its operating condition, so that people can experience what it was to ride this kind of a streamlined train in 1935, when the world was pulled by steam and railroad cars had movable windows.
Millions of dollars and countless hours have been spent refurbishing and restoring this masterpiece. The job is getting closer to completion. While its sister trains have been partially restored and are on static display, plans are for the Flying Yankee to be a fully functioning 3-car moving train once again.
Once it's running, the train will be spotted here in Lincoln, New Hampshire, and during the summertime we will operate the train as a unique experience, a tourist experience, running the train down the track towards our capital here in New Hampshire of Concord. Now, the reason we're here is that the line from here to Concord is indeed owned by the state, and that is why several years ago we sold the train to the state for $1, only to have a partner who would survive us. And so during the summertime we would intend to operate it on a 5-day basis as a unique excursion. Well, when we found it down on Edaville Railroad, it had been sitting there since 1958, 40 years, and so it was in pretty tough shape. It had been vandalized, and parts and pieces were all over the place. So our biggest project initially was stripping it down to the bare metal, as you saw in the C-car, and getting it to that point before we could start putting it back together. and making it as authentic as possible. Now, things that have been purchased and are done is the trucks have been rebuilt. And they're sitting in cages over here, ready to be put back under it. The traction motors are done and ready to be used, the 721s. There's no other around, so those are going to be used, and the experts tell us that it's good for at least 10 years. And then, of course, the interior of the B car and all of the seats for the entire train have been redone by Thelma Hansen, lady here in Lincoln, an elderly lady. She did them herself. And then we have lots of pieces and parts. We have 5 containers full of parts for the Yankee to be ready to put back in that we purchased over time. Of course, we're sitting in the engine compartment, and that's the biggest piece, to find out what kind of an engine we can use for main power. The Winton that was originally there are no spare parts for it. We started to restore it, abandoned that when we found it wouldn't be any spare parts. If we broke down someplace, we were dead in the water until we made a part. So we're talking to various companies about the possibility of a genset or an engine of the future, if you will, which this train was when it was here in 1935. So we want that to be the engine to drive the thing when it comes.
It will be a museum on wheels and an icon for education. A train that will be as comfortable on an excursion as it will be when it serves as a classroom.
Well, the concept is a rolling classroom where you can bring the youth of New Hampshire and explain the history of this train and of the Great Depression, how engineers, artists, businessmen got together and put this system together in the heart or the depth of Depression, and people all over the world, not just New Hampshire or New England, will come to take a look at this one-of-a-kind artifact and see what it was like when it ran in its heyday.
When the Flying Yankee was first introduced, it was a testament to American ingenuity, hard work, and creativity. It offered inspiration and hope. It lured people back to trains and dazzled them with the allure of rail travel. How impressive that she will get another chance to do the exact same thing.